The War in Afghanistan by Jack Coney and Kate Zartzen. The war in Afghanistan has been a landmark in U.S. history as a never-ending war and has taken millions of people's lives while the main goal was to save people's lives. The problem involving the war in Afghanistan began on October 7, 2001 when the armies of the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, France, Canada, and the Afghan Front launched Operation Enduring Freedom. The U.S. organized this response to the attacks by al-Qaeda on September 11, 2001. This was the start of the war in Afghanistan, in which the U.S. and its allies tried to put a stop to the Taliban and al-Qaeda organizations in Afghanistan. This long and violent war is still occurring to this day. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. made their initial attack by bombing the city of Kabul. The U.S. ended up striking down several important al-Qaeda members in this attack. This initial attack was the U.S. first response to the attacks of 9/11 and would spark the start of the war in Afghanistan. Unfortunately for the U.S., the Taliban fled Kabul safely during the attack. Going into the war, the U.S.'s goal was not only to take down the Taliban and al-Qaeda, but to also protect the innocent people of Afghanistan and help build a safer and more reliable government for them. Former President George W. Bush said this about the U.S. Army helping the Afghan people. The men and women of Afghanistan are building a nation that is free, proud, and fighting terror, and America is honored to be their friend. The situation in Afghanistan grew worse when members from al-Qaeda took over security in Afghan cities. After this, the Northern Alliance planned to attack Mazar-e-Sharif, Kabul, Kandahar, and Tora Bora. At this point in time, the U.S. had their opponent on their heels as they were attacking multiple areas and getting closer to their goal of taking down the Taliban and al-Qaeda. Before the U.S. attacked the city of Kabul, the Taliban fled to Pakistan, which triggered Operation Anaconda in 2002. The U.S. and the Taliban and al-Qaeda battled in Pakistan for a whole year. In 2006, the Taliban had regained their confidence after evading the U.S. and planned to regain control of the Afghan war. The foreign peacekeeper NATO responded well and struck down a large number of Taliban in the Battle of Panjwai, Operation Fury, and Operation Falcon Summit. NATO did well in taking out a lot of the Taliban and winning battles, but their work was not done as the Taliban wasn't completely defeated. In the years of 2007, 2008, and 2009, the U.S. was forced to send more troops into the battle as the casualties and the strength of the Taliban increased. The issue of bringing more troops into Afghanistan was a controversial topic. Hillary Clinton had this to say about that issue. Now I know there are many Americans who say, get out of Afghanistan, bring them all home. And there are others who say, put in hundreds of thousands more. The number of troops continued to increase as the Taliban grew stronger. The U.S. had some work to do to keep the Taliban out of control. They succeeded and ended up killing 900 Taliban commanders in 2010. A U.S. general said this about the huge gain. We've got our teeth in the enemy's jugular now, and we're not going to let go. This was a huge gain for the U.S. and a turning point in this war as they gained momentum. On May 2, 2011, the world was informed that Taliban leader Osama bin Laden had been killed in Pakistan by the CIA and U.S. Navy SEALs. This was a huge accomplishment for the U.S. and NATO. In June of 2011, President Obama stated that 10,000 troops would be withdrawn by the end of 2011 and 23,000 by the end of 2012. The war in Afghanistan was slowly coming to an end with most of the power in the U.S. hand. In 2012, Afghanistan and the U.S. agreed to withdraw all of their troops by the end of 2014. The war in Afghanistan was not the most bloody war, but it was extremely expensive. The current cost of the war in Afghanistan is over $623 billion. Also, the public opinion of the war changed drastically as the war grew older and people who had previously backed it changed their minds and didn't support it anymore. The war in Afghanistan has been a long journey and coming to an end now. The safety of our country and the people of Afghanistan was improved by thousands of soldiers going to war and risking their lives for their country. The U.S.'s goal was to take out the Taliban and al-Qaeda and to provide more safety to the people of Afghanistan, and they were successful.
There's a Taliban stronghold about a kilometer from here at the base of these mountains. With enemy enemy fire getting closer, special forces are exposed as they move along the banks of the river. A soldier reloads, preparing for another assault. We run towards the compound where insurgents stage one of their attacks.
Hey, we're pushing down this way, alright? Let's go.
They quickly secure the area, not knowing what's behind these walls.
Somebody looking back that way? Nope.
Movement inside has
To start, the United States are drawn to Afghanistan because of the Caspian Sea, which holds one of the largest petroleum and gas reserves in the world. The U.S. has achieved military bases in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. In addition, the Afghan Interim Authority was developed which gave humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and U.S. forces are helping to stabilize and reconstruct Afghanistan. The U.S. is helping to reassemble Afghanistan because we are not at war with them, we are at war with the insurgents of the Taliban. The United States went to Afghanistan to get Osama bin Laden and failed at first, but they stayed there. Some people think it is because of the minerals and oil. The Defense Secretary by the name of Philip Hammond said, Afghanistan is an incredibly complex society, a multi-ethnic society that was very fragmented before we started. Our ability to influence outcomes is very limited. This says that no one can foresee what will happen to Afghanistan after NATO troops end their job there in 2014. A numerous amount of people believe that the Afghan people, on their own, will find a persisting result to their country's difficulties. However, there are still concerns that the Afghan people will not rehabilitate the harm done to their country by coalition forces. Finally, some people say that other countries aren't doing enough to help. The war ruined an extensive part of Afghanistan, most of which are the homes of innocent people. The Pentagon's total fund for war from 2001 to 2011 in current dollars was $1,406 billion. 132,000 Afghan civilians have died from this war, and at least 18,462 U.S. troops have been wounded or dead. Many people believe we should offer more humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people. On the other hand, others anticipate that NATO does more than enough. After all, NATO has provided military education programs, courses to advance the fight against the Taliban, provided high-speed internet, training for urgent circumstances, and international relationships to promote a better comprehension NATO's of mission is to supply Afghanistan with security systems. The NATO-led ISAF, International Security Assistance Force, has been composing security operations and training the Afghan National Security Forces. Moreover, some say that Britain has a moral obligation to help Afghans who are in danger from the Taliban because Britain is the only country of NATO yet to do something powerful to help. Thus, there is a huge problem in Afghanistan. With the help of NATO and other forces, it could be resolved or it could never turn positive. The key to the end of this war is to educate people about it. A copious amount of people think they know about it, but the majority of people do not. Some people are not even interested in it. We are in a period where the American public is intensely focused on domestic economic concerns, said Michael Dimmock, the Associate Director for Research at the Pew Research Center for the People and the Press. On top of this, the public is having a hard time staying focused on foreign engagements that have been ongoing for over a decade. Finally, there are many global issues that people do not take into consideration. People live in their everyday life and don't realize the impact on what is happening in the world around us.